Felipe Lopez. So we all went down there and we took our pictures. 2 weeks later, Sports Illustrated came out. They gave Felipe Lopez the cover, me, AI, and Ray Allen, the full-page pictures inside the magazine, and the title of the story was The Big East is Back. Boston College was all excited that one of their athletes was in Sports Illustrated, so we had a function. We had a function in the practice gym, a gym very similar to this. All my family members and friends and all Division I athletes on campus of Boston College showed up to celebrate that. After that celebration, my coach walked into the gym and he said, "Tomorrow night, Chris, I want you to be back here, same time. We got a former NFL football player. He played in the NFL for 12 years. Played for the New York Giants. He's going to come talk to you about substance abuse." I looked at my coach and I said, "Come on, coach, man, don't waste my time with that nonsense. I heard that story a million times. It's never going to happen to me. I'm not going." My coach said, "If you don't go, you'll be suspended your first game." So I walked into this gym reluctantly. I sat in the top left corner. I had the nerve to talk. I had the nerve to text. I had the nerve to laugh, and I had the nerve to joke. But most importantly, I had the nerve not to listen. And how ironic it was when I walked out of that gym and I went to my dorm room that night. I opened my dorm room door. My roommate was sitting at a desk with a young girl. As soon as I opened the door, their body shifted. When their body shifted, I knew they were hiding something, so I walked up and I thought I was going to see some weed on the desk. When I looked over their shoulder, I saw a big pile of cocaine. At 18 years old, I had never seen cocaine. At 18 years old, cocaine to me symbolized death. Because the #1 player in my life, Len Bias, who was the #2 pick by the Boston Celtics in the NBA draft, who was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan, went out on draft night, smoked some cocaine, his heart exploded, and he died. So when I thought of cocaine, I thought of Len Bias, and I turned around and I started walking out the room, and as I'm walking out of the room, the little girl sitting at my desk said, "Chris, where you going? Come back. I promise it's not going to kill you." Those words right there erased Len Bias out of my head. I walked right back in. I sat at the desk like a big tough guy, and I said, "I know it's not going to kill me." She said, "Just put a little bit on your finger, put a little bit on your gums, your mouth is going to get numb." 2 minutes later, she pushed out 3 lines of cocaine. She looked at me, she handed me the dollar bill. I'm telling you today from the bottom of my heart, one of the main reasons why I do this, because at 18 years old, I looked at that 1 line of cocaine, and I said, "I'm going to do this once, man, because of the circumstances. I'm never doing this thing again." I snorted the line, I walked out. I had no idea that that one decision, it was going to take 14 years. After promising myself I'll do this once, it would take 14 years to put down the dollar bill. I had no idea that how much pain that one decision was going to bring me. As a Division I scholarship athlete, you're subjected to random drug testing. They called me into practice the next day, said, "You got to go downstairs and take a drug test." I walked in, knowing I was going to fail my first drug test as a Division I scholarship athlete. I took that drug test. I failed for marijuana and cocaine. They called me into the office and they said, "Chris, you got 2 more chances here, my man. Second one will result in a 1-game suspension, and the third one will result in a 1-year suspension." In my first game at BC, I was on a fast break and I was going up for a layup. My feet got tangled up with another guy. I hit the deck. When I hit the deck, I fractured my wrist. I went in for surgery that next morning, which ended my freshman season at Boston College. With basketball out of my life for the first time, I dove into partying. In my 3rd month at BC, I was busted for smoking weed and cocaine. In my 4th month, I was busted my 3rd and final time for marijuana and cocaine. They called me into the office and they said, "Chris, we ain't worried about 2,000-point scorers here. We're not worried about McDonald's All-Americans or Sports Illustrated. There's going to be another one coming next year. What we're worried about is our campus, and we believe you're a danger to it. Security is outside. They're going to escort you back to your room. You're going to pack your stuff, and we want you off campus by the end of the day." At 18 years old, I was thrown out of Boston College. My scholarship taken away, but what's amazing is 4 months earlier, I walked into a gym just like this, sat way up there, and said, "Nah, man, that would never happen to me." I sat on my couch for 2 months waiting for college coaches to call me. Finally, this guy in Fresno, California said, "I'm going to give you a second chance." This man said, "I'm a fan of second chances. I believe you're a worthy one." At 18 years old, that's all I needed to hear. I jumped on a plane. I flew 3,000 miles to California and started my career over at Fresno State. When I landed in Fresno, my coaching staff surrounded me with people in recovery. I was hanging out with 20, 30, 40-year-old men who were sober and going to meetings. And with those type of guys in my life, I flourished in my sophomore season. I averaged 18 points a game. I was first team all-WAC. I was talking to NBA scouts about leaving school early. The NBA scout said to me, "Chris, all you got to do, man, go back for your junior season. Play 1 more year and then get up out of college." I went back for my junior season, but the problem with me My ego got too big. I thought I could do it on my own, and I wanted to kick it with my homeboys. I wanted to shake these old dudes and stop sitting in meetings. Slowly but surely, my career started going downhill. I just got done playing Duke University, who was #1 in the country. They had 9 first-round draft picks on that team. I had 30 points against them early in the season in Anchorage, Alaska. When I landed back in Fresno, there were 15 NBA general managers on my campus. They met with my president and my coach, and they said, tell your kid he's going to be a first-round pick. He's projected anywhere between 15 and 26. He's going to make $1.5 to $1.8 million a year. He can enter his name into the NBA draft in 2 months. 2 weeks later, I was playing against UMass Amherst on national TV, CBS, Sunday afternoon game at 2 o'clock. Saturday night, I went out with my homeboys and I said, let's go have a couple of drinks. 2 drinks turned to 4, 4 turned to 8. I picked up the phone, I called my coke dealer, and I said, meet me out. On the other line, he said, man, I can't meet you out. You have a game on national TV tomorrow. I said, I'm not worried about that game. Meet me out. He met me out at midnight. I did my first line of cocaine at midnight. I did my last line of cocaine at 1:30 the next afternoon. I sat in a parking lot with 2 girls in a car, drinking Budweiser and banging lines of cocaine while I watched 15,000 people walk into an arena to watch me play on national TV. It was a half hour before tip-off. I got out of my car. I ran into the locker room. I got dressed. I warmed up. I played in that game. After that game, my athletic director walked into the locker room and said, Chris, man, great game. Good win. Do me a favor. Go take a drug test. As soon as he said it, my heart dropped. I looked at that man. I said, you can save the drug test, Mr. Bowl. I'm going to fail it for cocaine. He said, I told you there's going to be consequences because we're not going to send one of our athletes to the NBA, a drug addict. So tonight you're going to come on campus at 8 o'clock. We're going to hold a press conference. At 8 o'clock tonight, you're going to look into the cameras and you're going to tell them at 21 years old you have a drug addiction that you've never dealt with. And for that drug addiction, if you ever want to play at Fresno State again, you're going to jump on a plane after the press conference. You're going to fly to Salt Lake City, Utah, and you're going to do 28 days in a treatment center. I walked into that press conference. I said I'm a 21-year-old drug addict. I looked at my mother and my grandfather in the back crying. And when I got done, I jumped in the car, went to the airport, and I flew to Salt Lake City, Utah. I sat in a treatment center for 28 days listening to people tell horrific stories. Telling stories about their kids, telling stories about shame and guilt. And I called my mother every night and I said, Mom, man, just get me out of here. I'll never turn out to be like these people. I kept my mouth shut. I wasted my time. I wasted their time. I did my 28 days. I jumped on a plane. I flew back to Fresno. Fresno let me play my senior year. My senior year, my wife got pregnant. Little Chris was born. And I was drafted by the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets picked me the 3rd pick in the 2nd round. That Saturday night with my friends probably cost me around $5, $6 million. When I landed in Denver for training camp, I walked into a locker room with Chauncey Billups, Nick Van Exel, and Antonio McDyess. Those guys pulled me aside and they said, dog, we know you got a drug problem. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure it don't come out here. I don't care that you have a child. I don't care if you're 22 years old. We're going to treat you like a little brother. There'll be no drinking and smoking on this team. When we go on road trips, when we go to hotels, you're not going to leave the hotel unless you're with one of us. Periodically, we're going to check in on your room to make sure you're ready. And with those type of teammates and those type of guys and those type of guidelines around me, I finished my rookie season on a high note. I flew back to Fall River, Massachusetts. I bought a big house, a couple of cars, and I was settling in with my family. Me and my wife were celebrating the fact that at 22 years old, I bought my first home. So we had a cookout. And we invited all the kids from high school to our house for a cookout. This one kid I went to high school with tapped me on my shoulder and he said, come on, Doug, let's take a walk. So I took a walk. I went around in front of my house, he went in his car, he came out. He looked at me in the eyes and he said, remember we were in high school and we'd play with the Perks? Play with the Vikings once in a while? I said, yeah. He said, there's a new drug, and he reached in his pocket. He pulled out this little Ziploc bag filled with these little yellow pills. And he said, dog, these are 40 milligram Oxycontin. They're like taking 5 Perks, 5 bites in one whack. They're $20. You want one? I reached in my pocket, I handed him $20. He dropped that little yellow pill in the palm of my hand. I looked at that little yellow pill and I laughed at it. I said, what's this thing gonna do to me, dog? I threw it in my mouth and went back to the cookout. I had no idea that that decision was gonna change my life forever. I had no idea. I had no idea that that $20 was going to turn to $25,000 a month dope habit. I had no idea that that 40 milligram pill was going to turn to 1,600 milligrams a day. I had no idea that I'd have to wake up on 1080s and go to bed on 1080s. I had no idea when it was time to go back to my 2nd season in the NBA, I was going to be a full-blown junkie. in 4 months because of that one little yellow pill. I flew back to Denver 5 days early to detox myself in a hotel room. I locked myself in a Four Seasons hotel and I started kicking these pills. For 5 straight days, for the first time I was detoxing, for 5 straight days I was sweating, throwing up, couldn't eat, legs kicking. And on day 5 of this detox, my phone rang in my hotel room and the guy said, "Mr. Patino would like to talk to you, please hold." Mr. Patino was the coach for the Boston Celtics. Mr. Patino got on the phone and said, "Congratulations, Chris. I just made you the newest member of the Boston Celtics. It must be quite an honor. Only 6 people in the history of the Celtics organization ever grew up in New England. We have a press conference scheduled tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Jump on the next flight, come home, man." When I hung up the phone, I didn't call my mom, I didn't call my wife and say, "I'm a Celtic." I called my dope dealer and I said, "I've been kicking these pills for 5 days, dog. I can't handle it no more. I got a press conference at 12 o'clock tomorrow. I'm the newest member of the Boston Celtics. Please meet me in the parking lot." When I pulled into the parking lot in a limousine, there was press and photographers waiting in the parking lot. They were taking pictures. As I got out, I walked into the building. As I walked into the building, I saw my man sitting in the parking lot. I walked into the press conference. I held my jersey. I smiled. I told him it was a dream come true. I told him since 4 years old, I've been working hard for this dream. Since 4 years old, I pretended I was a Celtic. And after that press conference, I dropped the jersey. I ran outside, I jumped in the car. I grabbed my 800 milligrams, threw it in my mouth, and never looked back. In my 6th game as a Boston Celtic, Rick Pitino walked into the locker room. Rick Pitino walked into the locker room, and I'm sitting outside of Paul Pierce, and he said, "Tonight, Chris, get ready. You're my starting point guard." The first 5 games he didn't play me because my trade was still clearing. So I jumped on the phone, and I called my dope dealer, and I said, "My man, I'm playing tonight. You need to jump in the car and get up with me." We've got an hour and 10 minutes before the scoreboard goes off, an hour and 10 minutes before I hear my name in the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics. He said, "I'll do my best." He jumped in his car on his way up there. Every 10 minutes I run into the locker room, I check my phone, I say, "Where you at?" He said, "I'm on my way." With 8 minutes to go before I heard my name in the starting lineup, he called my phone, he said, "Come on outside, I'm stuck in traffic, I can't come in." I'm head to toe, Celtics warm-ups. I got 15,000 people in this arena waiting to watch us play. And in 8 minutes, I'm going to hear my name called in the starting lineup. So I went out the back door, I went out the class parking lot, I walked through the gate, and I stood on Causeway Street waiting for my dope dealer. 2 minutes later, he pulled up, he handed me my 800 milligrams, I threw it into my mouth, I ran back in the arena. With 2 minutes to go on the clock, I heard my name called from Fall River, Massachusetts, starting that point guard, Chris Herren. I don't remember one word. All I remember, my first memory as a Boston Celtic was standing on Causeway Street copping dope. Halfway through the season, Shaquille O'Neal went up to block my shot, and he tore my rotator cuff. When he tore my rotator cuff, that ended my season with the Celtics. I went in for surgery the next day, and at the end of that season, I was contacted by the Dallas Mavericks, and the Dallas Mavericks said, "We want to sign you to a summer league contract." So I jumped on a plane, I flew to Dallas, I signed my contract, I flew back to Boston. I was playing in the NBA Summer League at UMass Boston. In the NBA Summer League, you play 7 games. I had just finished my 5th game, and I was leading the league in scoring and assists. My agent met with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Utah Jazz that night, and they said, "We're going to pay him $2.5 to $2.8 million a year, $8 million.
Holy shit.
When I walked out of that meeting, my agent pulled me aside and he said, "Congratulations, Chris. Finish these next 2 games and you're a multi-millionaire." I went to bed that night with my son and my wife at the Four Seasons Hotel. I woke up the next morning, I was packing my bag, threw my backpack on, I'm walking into the lobby, and my phone rang. When I answered my phone, it was the kid with the yellow pill's brother, and he said, "Dog, you got to do something different today. He can't meet you. My brother got locked up last night." I closed the phone and I said to myself, $8 million at 800 milligrams. As I was boarding the bus, at the last second I stopped. I turned around, I walked back into the lobby, I grabbed Rolando Blackman's hand, who was coaching me at the time, and I said, "Sir, thank you for the opportunity, but I quit." I chose 800 milligrams over $8 million. I jumped in my car, I drove to Fall River, I caught my dope. I started feeling better, I jumped on the phone, I called the Dallas Mavericks, and I said, "Give me a second chance." They said, "We don't do second chances in the NBA." In the NBA Summer League, there's teams from all over the world that watch you play. This team in Bologna, Italy. This team in Bologna, Italy, the #1 team in Europe, called me up.